This is the Mary Poppins of Startups podcast. Let the show begin.
Are you seeking natural energy without the crash of coffee caffeine? Are you looking for a dairy-free, vegan alternative to your daily cup of tea? Look no further. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Nelly McAndrew from Athena Leaders, an organization that is passionate about helping startups deliver their complex projects and launch their products whilst leaving behind the legacy of a happy and productive workplace playground. For those who are new to the show, two reminders. First one, we love interacting with you. If you have any questions, please put in the chat. Find us online, use hashtag Athena Leaders. We'll make sure that we get back to you and as well as our amazing guests that we have on the show today. Second one, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Today, I've got the pleasure of talking to a very, very amazing woman. She is the Chief Tea Officer of HumaniTea, jumping from a career in tech to start creating a product that is unlike many that you've ever seen out there. I'm not going to say a lot because there's a lot of wonderful things that she's going to be sharing with us today. So if you are startups out there and you're wondering, how do I start building a product, especially a physical product, when you're thinking about manufacturing suppliers and just the challenges, as well as the great things that comes with developing something for the social good and the sustainability of the planet, then this episode is for you. Tina, welcome to the show. I've been following you for quite a while and I've read a lot about the things that you have online. And I just think that your product is fantastic. And I can't wait for my next trip to the UK to buy one and try one. I've already spoken to a few people and been spreading the word around. Can you tell our listeners, those who might not have had the opportunity to come across HumaniTea, what is HumaniTea?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm super excited today. So I'm Chief Tea Officer of HumaniTea. HumaniTea is a social enterprise, and we support well-being and sustainability initiatives through our tea lattes. We produce the UK's first ready-to-drink oat milk tea lattes. They're inspired by bubble tea, and they're made with fair trade organic ingredients, so tea, oat milk, and a bit of agave. So really clean ingredient list. It's also low sugar, low calorie, exclude any artificial flavors, emulsifiers, and provide boost of natural energy without the crash of coffee caffeine, so it can keep you going throughout the day. And our motto is to spread me time, tea time, anytime. So encourage people, to take tea breaks to find mindfulness. And we have two flavors here, the matcha latte and the Earl Grey latte.
Can you put them up on the screen again? I'm going to try and get out. There we go. So we got the matcha and the Earl Grey. Oh, that's wonderful.
Take a tea break.
And can you explain the motto again in a bit more detail? You have the me time,
tea time, anytime.
Brilliant.
We found that 1 in 6 people in the UK suffer from mental health issues due to stress from work. So just taking a 5-minute tea break throughout the day can really help you find mindfulness. So that's the concept of have a HumaniTea, take a tea break and just relax and reconcentrate and reboost yourself.
That's for sure. And as a Brit myself, I'm sure that there are many people who are probably already thinking about that question. Would HumaniTea be good to have with a piece of biscuits next to it?
Yes, definitely. It goes well with cookies, cakes, just perfect for afternoon tea or in the morning.
So for those who don't know, you started your career in IT and one day you decided to jump and go to something completely different. So can you talk us through the aha moments where you thought, this is the gap in the market and, this is what I'm going for?
Yeah, sure. So I first got into the startup world and got interested in it probably when I was in university. Mm-hmm. So that was back when I was still in the US studying at UCLA doing economics, and I joined some entrepreneurship clubs. And I saw that some fellow classmates, they've done Kickstarter campaigns and raised money, like close to $1 million, just setting up a business that they're passionate about. And I thought I could do it too. If they can do it at 19, I can do it as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go into corporate first to get that CV experience, soft skills, technical skills from a big corporate. So I joined Accenture after I graduated from university. And so there I was doing technology consulting, gain those soft skills, team building experiences. And so from there, I wanted to go and do a master's. And that's when I moved across to the UK. I went to Imperial College Business School to do my MBA. And there I took some classes around innovation, social impact, and sustainability. So I really got into the world of social enterprises. And I even joined a women's entrepreneurship program that year. And so I was working on a sustainable nappy, something completely different to what I'm doing now. But I knew that sustainability was something I was interested in. And so after I graduated from my MBA, I took a few months off to figure out like what kind of business I wanted to do. And I realized I was really passionate in food and drink. And so I set up HumaniTea. And the reason why tea is because I grew up drinking a lot of bubble tea, like iced milky tea, as part of my Taiwanese heritage. And so even when I moved to the US, I was drinking a lot of bubble tea. And I saw how popular it was in the London market, but there was no ready to drink format where it was sold in supermarkets in the like chilled section, ready to grab and go. And so I decided to fill that gap in the market. And I did market research, found that there's a lot of coffee lattes and there's a lot of plain iced tea with lots of sugar. So what can I do to make it better? So that's why our products are focused on being low sugar, low calorie, and also having really clean ingredient lists and using ethically sourced ingredients. And also vegan, so that is easier for people who had dietary restrictions, and also people who are lactose intolerant. And oat milk is also one of the most eco-friendly milks available in terms of both emissions and water usage. And that's why we chose that out of the different plant-based milks available.
And I love the fact that HumaniTea really ticks a lot of the boxes, as you've mentioned, when it comes to sustainability, from the point of view of where it's come, where it's sourced, the ingredients, and also the ease of getting it from the supermarket. Yet it also appeals to vegan, even if they have some restriction, because a lot of the drinks out there, tea or coffee based one, will have milk that might not be suitable for them. So that's one of the things that I found very attractive with the HumaniTea concept. Just out of interest, for anyone who's watching this and probably wondering, what happened with the nappies?
Oh, yes. So I thought it was a great idea because I realized that a lot of nappies are going to landfill. And instead of being recycled or reused. And so the concept was to make a flushable one. So one that could keep the nappy, like hold all the liquids, but at the same time, when you throw it away, it won't end up in landfill. It won't last a long time. It will biodegrade quickly and be able to be flushed down. But I realized that I don't have the material science knowledge and to develop this type of special material. And so I wanted something at the time that I could do in terms of both marketing, sales, product creation, innovation of the whole life cycle of the business. And I felt like food and drink is something that I'm really knowledgeable about because I love to eat and drink. And so I could make other prototypes and just try it myself. And so I felt more fitting to my interests. And then I still wanted to incorporate the whole social impact and like the purpose over profit in the business. So I was able to still do that and combine my passion for like tea and drinks. And so that's why HumaniTea.
Yeah, brilliant. So when you first started with HumaniTea, because you mentioned, of course, the material science was in your background and you could experiment a lot more when it comes to tea. I would assume that the most of experimentation was done at home, or was it kind of a private kitchen in the back of a room somewhere, or was it in a lab that you started with the putting together the component that now makes HumaniTea?
Yeah, the first batches, I was trying to make it and sample before I even started selling just for myself. I was doing it in my friend's flat. So I was staying with her at the time for a few months and just using her kitchen. So busy making tea throughout the day. She was very kind, didn't complain when I was mixing all these things in her kitchen.
Oh, the washing up, I don't want to imagine.
But yeah, those were the first few batches I made and tried and make her try as well. And then afterwards, I did a tasting session at Imperial College where I invited people from industry and also just people who would be interested in buying these type of products to get their feedback through a blind taste test. And from there, I understood more what I needed to change to make the recipe better. And then afterwards, I decided to go into farmers markets after receiving some business coaching advice from the Enterprise Lab, which is our incubator space at Imperial. And so there was when I rented a commercial kitchen and got all the certifications like food safety and then all the business liability, product liability insurance to go and start trading in the markets. And using the better recipes that I've created from the first initial trials and then started selling there. And then in the market, obviously got feedback as well from customers. And that was through a whole year. And from there, made the recipe better and better before I went to factory production. So it was always like reiterating and understanding which products to manufacture from a large scale perspective.
Yes.
And farmers markets is a great way to try that. So I definitely recommend for food and drink startups who want to start seeing which of their products will sell best and which ones to go to market with. It's a great testing ground. And the people who go to farmers markets, they tend to be quite open to giving feedback as well, and they want to support small businesses.
Right.
So yeah, they'll be great supporters of your business, and you'll have them along your journey. Just like as they follow you on social media over the months.
Oh, that's a really good way, as you said, to drum up support. So is there anything else that you tried when it comes to customer testing and just getting as much feedback as possible? Because the founder market was the biggest one, but is there anything else that you did as well?
Yeah, in terms of building a community,
yes.
I think to build a community like TEA community, we did a few events like the sampling sessions, just getting feedback on what to be improved. Because I think if you keep people from the beginning of the production process, they feel also invested in your success and they want you to do well. And then also, yes, farmers markets and like joining different groups. So I was going to a lot of networking events, food and drink networking events like Bread and Jam, and also joined our startup programs like Virgin Startup, Cambridge Social Ventures for social enterprises. And there was also the South Bank University. They had this program for food and drink startups called London Agri-Food Innovation Clinic. And so, yeah, there's all these programs I could get involved in. And also, of course, EIT Food, where I met a lot of great food, like agri-food scientists and just people who are really passionate about this industry. And so, yeah, like just being a part of these communities, these programs, you get this network of people who follow you either on LinkedIn, social media, and just want your business to be successful. And I think it's this like network that really has helped me also overcome difficult obstacles along the startup journey. Like having a mentor has been really great. So yeah, even though I have the business alone as like a solopreneur, I still have this network, this community that is really supportive, and I'm really grateful for that.
Indeed. I mean, you've done such an incredible journey, especially at the beginning, just to create the community and as well and test the product. So now when we jump into the actual manufacturing, there was a point where you decided this kitchen is not going to be big enough for what we want to do, and we need to move on to the next stage. So how did you go about starting to manufacture, especially when it comes to the packaging aspect and bottling up the product?
Yes, Yes, I can say COVID was one of the driving factors that made me go to factory production faster, because I was selling in farmers markets, and when lockdown hit, it was not recommended to travel unnecessarily. And so I just felt like I didn't really think going to the kitchen to still produce and selling in farmers markets made sense, because a lot of the markets also shut down during that period. So I looked at seeing ways to move online. And at the same time, I was part of this program for setting up like a crowdfunding campaign. So I used that period to set up the campaign and crowdfund to raise money for factory production. And so that's one of the reasons I also went to factory production. Although I knew that I wanted to do that eventually, I felt like COVID just made it a bit faster and helped me move away from farmers markets at a quicker speed. And so during the crowdfunding campaign, I was able to raise 13K, which was enough for the factory production. And we had supporters from over 120 people. And these were mainly weak ties as well. People had met in different events. Some people maybe I've only connected with via LinkedIn. So it wasn't just like super close friends and family. And I just realized how like lucky I was to have these people behind me through the events, through the network that I have built over the months and the years.
That's
Leading
an
up to the
amazing
production.
support there.
Yeah.
It's amazing support. I think raising 13K, 120 people, and so many of them you've never met, but just following you. I guess in a way, it also gives you the strength to know that you're going down the right way when it comes to validation of your idea and your product, right?
Yeah, and I think that's also why farmers market makes sense, because I realized if there is a market for it when people are willing to part money and they're not my friends. So there are people I don't know and they're willing to part with their money. It means there's a market for it, especially for a physical consumer good. And then you asked about like how the recipe, like going to factory production and like the whole packaging. So that I outsourced. So for the design, I worked with a freelance graphic designer. So I was working with her very closely to come up with the identity of the brand, like the H, for example, for HumaniTea, and the tea leaf here. And then I still wanted something like cute that we had from before. Because all my previous logos, we had 3 other logos that I made by myself and with friends. So we had like a T-Rex and then also like a manatee at some point. But yeah, so wanted to have the teacup to kind of remind people like, yeah, it's about taking tea break, it's about finding that mindfulness, and then the me time, tea time, anytime. So yeah, really great opportunity to work closely with her and to create the brand. And then for the factory production, I did the sourcing for all the supplies myself, and then going to visit the factory, as well as like the recipe development, which I worked with a food scientist on to make sure that the recipe that I had in the commercial kitchen could be given to the factory and made on a large scale batch. So we produced like 5,000 units, 10,000 units. So it was different than just making it in batches of 100.
Yeah.
And for the ingredients, I went to, for example, for the matcha, I was in Japan and I visited a bunch of matcha factories to understand which one would be best. And I was specifically looking for organic matcha. So just visiting the different matcha factories and trying it and see which ones I liked. And then for the Earl Grey tea, it's actually from Rwanda. And we chose that one because it's a fair trade organic tea farm from Rwanda. And also the quality is really good. And yeah, so it's just a matter of like sourcing from different quality suppliers, working with a factory and also the food scientists to come up with a final product to be manufactured. So yeah, it was a mix of working with many different people in the process.
And how did it feel like how did it feel like when you sat down with the first can of HumaniTea in your hands and the product was done? How can you take us to that moment?
Yeah, it was really, really exciting because it was just like all those years like leading up to the final product, and like now it's like real. and I realized I have so much tea in the warehouse. I was like, oh, I better sell it now because otherwise I'll be drinking tea for days. And yeah, so it was then I was like, oh, I'm super excited. I want to share about this news to all my community. And then I started setting up the website, and then we had our own online website, and then we also started selling into retailers. So that was January 2021 when we started selling into our first stores, which included like Asian supermarkets, restaurants, vegan supermarkets, health food stores, cafes, and gyms, as well as offices. So it was a good mix of places that we're selling in.
One of the next biggest breaks that you've had was being accepted to sell into, I think it was Ocado, the supermarket.
Yes. So that
Yeah.
was recently. That was in the last few months, and the whole process took a year because that's when I first pitched to them after the application, an online application, and then invited to pitch. They said they liked it. I had to follow up, but didn't hear back for like a few months. So I kept on following up, and eventually got to the right buyer. But then because it's a big supermarket, there's a lot of change and turnover. So I probably spoke with 5 or so different buyers.
Wow.
And there was another change over Christmas, this past Christmas. So definitely needed to refresh them about like what the brand was again. But luckily, like they were still happy to work with me, even though there were so many changes in the team. And I was able to get the product live on the Ocado website a few months ago. And yeah, it's a great opportunity because I think Ocado, they support small challenger brands because they are online. So they have the capacity to have more different products. And yeah, it's a great way to get my product out there to interested customers and people who might discover our product through Ocado.
Yeah. And then congratulations for that. And as again, anyone listening to your journey so far, and there's so many tips that you've shared already, but I can see your tenacity and what it took to get to this point, and definitely being into a supermarket in addition to restaurants and convenience stores and so many other places where you are already selling. So that's an amazing achievement.
Thank you.
So if you look at just a few more advice for startups out there, the first advice that I'd like to get from you, for anyone watching that, especially coming from a different field, what would you say to someone coming from a completely different field, non-food related, and they want to do something that's going to impact the world, but it's also in the food and drinks? What kind of advice would you tell them, especially based on your experience of some of the things that you might not have known when you first started on the journey?
Yeah, so my experience is coming mainly from being a food and drink company in London, because I found that in London there are so many different food and drink communities. So one of the biggest one is Bread and Jam, but they also have an online forum called the Food Hub. So you could join there obviously from any location. And a lot of the events are based in London, but they also have online events. But yeah, most of the people that I've met who are food and drink founders that I keep in touch with are people that I met through those networking events. And there's actually a big one coming up that they hold every year in July. And so there you can pitch to buyers, you can network with different food and drink founders, and also hear from experienced founders who have already started selling in like Waitrose, all the big supermarkets in the UK. So you get people who are very young in their journey and people who are very already many years ahead who come back and share their experiences. And yeah, so I think that community is especially great. And most of the people, or actually a lot of the people I met from these programs, don't have any food and drink background. So many coming from banking, consulting, and they just decided to quit their very lucrative banking job or consulting job and say, no, like what I'm passionate about is, creating a Rice Krispie treat or creating vegan ice cream. So Yeah, there's many interesting people from there. So just let you know that you're not alone if that's something that you're interested in. And it's definitely possible because all you need is the passion, the idea. Obviously, you need some finances to get started. But once you start selling, then the money should come back in and where you can reinvest back into the business.
Yeah, and as you've also mentioned, this idea of creating the community and is actually very, very useful for you as you grow in your journey. And your own Kickstarter campaign also was very, very good. So yeah, it's good to know that you are not alone, and there's a lot of support out there to go and find out more about the food industry and the steps you have to take. And then the final advice I would ask on this topic will be about the not so much the manufacturing process, but once it's been manufactured and knocking on the doors of restaurants and suppliers and especially big supermarket chains like Ocado. Is there any advice that you can share with our founders to help them navigate that space?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely be persistent, resilient, but not too persistent where it becomes annoying. Yeah, so it's a balance. But I've tried several techniques. So one that's quite simple is simply to carry products around with you and scope out some stores that you want to visit in the area. For example, like there's a lot of knife shops like in East London supporting like small independent brands. So I remember because I don't live that close to there, I just brought a bunch and decided to go there for the day, uh, 4 or 5 hours, walk around and just drop off samples and speak with the owners of the shops and say, oh, are you interested in stocking? Like, these are the prices. Maybe you can offer an introductory price or even zero return if you really want to get into the store, because usually if you offer a sale return, most stores they won't say no because it's an opportunity for them to try to sell your product without any risk. But at the same time, at the beginning, when you just want visibility and you know it's a good store, it has lots of footfall, in the long term it could actually bring you traction to your personal website, like your business website, where they can buy direct from your website, or to your social media page where then they follow your journey and they become your early supporters. So that's one way. Another way is just to DM, so direct message shops on Instagram. So maybe there is some shop in another city, like maybe I want to sell in Glasgow and I know they specialize in vegan products. I'll send them a message and then see if they're interested in taking samples. If they say yes, then I send them samples and then follow up in a few weeks to see if they're still like interested in purchasing the product to be sold in their store. And then for the larger ones, like let's say Sainsbury's or Ocado, they have really specific process that you need to follow, like, oh, apply online through this link. And if we see there's a fit, we'll get back to you. So don't contact us, just apply on there and we'll contact you. Because I guess they get so many people contacting them, they need to have an organized, structured way to separate which like categories they're looking at a specific time. And many supermarkets, they actually have specific months that they look at certain products. So if you miss that date, they won't look at it again until maybe 6 months or a year. So even if you reach out to them, they're interested. They're not going to look at it. They'll just put it away, file it, and then if they need it, they'll reach back out to you. But of course, it doesn't hurt to reach out every 2-3 months if they say like, oh, maybe in the future. So if they tell you that, then just keep in touch and keep then share any interesting news. Like for example, if you're featured in some news article, like you got featured in Forbes for some achievement, share that, and just so they know that your brand is still around, you're doing well, and that they would be lucky to have you in their store and to know that you're doing well. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing so many great tips. I mean, anyone watching this, founders, those who wants to go into the food market, you've opened up your own pocketbook and they can learn so much from you, from your tenacity, from some of the strategy that you've used, and especially from the market research that you've done to validate your product. And for those who are not in the food industry, they will still pick up on your passion and also on the good habits that you developed in your practice to building your product and the thing that you need to do. For example, going back, the tenacity, and knock on doors and doors again and again until you get through. So thanks so much for that.
I actually remember another really great tool is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I think we first also connected on LinkedIn. I
Yes, we
chatted
did.
with you on LinkedIn. Yeah, so LinkedIn is great for reaching out. And I found some buyers of certain categories just through LinkedIn search. Like, for example, you can say buyer for granola, like Selfridges. And you might see like, oh, they're focused on bakery products. So that could be your buyers. And then you can then find the email format of the supermarket or the department store, etc., and then email the person directly. So that's a great way to go directly to their inbox, and also to first also contact them on LinkedIn. So you then reach them on both LinkedIn and email. So they're more likely to respond to you and have seen your message.
Yeah, so like a two-pronged approach, or approach on both sides, really.
Yeah, and some people even go in and like wait for the people to come out of their office. I haven't personally done that, but I have heard success. Like someone told me they went to Selfridges, happened to see their buyer because they already did research, so they know what the buyer looks like. Had prepared a box with a note saying, "Call me, like if you're interested," and ended up getting a listing there just because they found the buyer at the right time, gave them the products, and then left, and then got the call after. So yeah, it's a hit and miss, but like it's a risk that I think if you're really passionate about, like you will just do it. So.
And there's also this thing about do what other people might not be prepared to do, or do it differently, so that you can, get someone who's really surprised and got this box landed on their laps. But at least you know that now Dave is in their hands, and come what may, they will try it and contact you.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyone listening right now, it's been such a great episode. It's not over. There's a definitely part two that's coming up, and we still are going to uncover. There's so much we haven't even touched on. So much. Tina, the entrepreneur, her journey, and especially for founders that think, I've got an idea. How do I get to the point where Tina is today? We're going to look a lot more on the incubator, accelerator, and so much more. So stay put.